Spy Guy, what we're going to work on today is an Aqua Flo XP2e. You see that little E on there? That changes things. They have an XP2. This is an XP2e. Stay tuned. Alright, so if you look at this pump, if you look up in here, you can see that the impeller's actually got a split in it. I can actually see the back of it. And I put a video up, I'll put it up probably right now, showing you this thing spraying in there. So this is a very obvious repair, and you can even see where the water has built up over a period of time. So this thing is sprayed and been wet for a long time, but it still actually turns pretty good. So we're going to tear into this thing. The first thing I'm going to do in this particular case is we're probably, because this thing is swollen up here, we're probably going to have to pull the stator out and put it in a vise to get the impeller off. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this. And the other reason that you go ahead and mark it is so you know which direction that your wet end is in. And you can put your plates back on where they match up. And what I mean is, you can see that this thing's turned this way. You can actually have it turned this way, or even upside down, which would be very rare. So it helps you to know how to put your pump back together. So the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to pull the face off, and we're going to try to hold the shaft and see if we can turn the impeller off, but I bet we can't. We're going to have to break it apart, so stay tuned. Alright, so I'm going to finish pulling the screws out of the face here. And I keep all my screws together. Spot parts are good use for anything. That is a drain cover right there. I can hold the screws. So we're going to take the face off, and I want you to see something that I can see inside here. Look at there. That is the flapper from the filter housing. So that getting caught in there would make noise, as well as cut the power of the tub way down, because it's impeding the movement of the water through the impeller. You see that right there. Now what this is supposed to do, it's supposed to blend the suction in the footwell of the tub and the filter itself. It's supposed to move based off of how much basically to make the filter pull as much as it can before it pulls from the suction. When that thing breaks down, it's going to pull from the suction till it can't pull anymore, and then from the filter. So of course, with this missing, you're going to get less filtration, but in order to replace this, you have to replace the entire filter housing, and most people are not going to spend that kind of money. Don't think so anyway. So you've got the wear ring right here, and you can see that this is large. When you look around this is an XP2e, so if you measure across this, it's going to measure about 2, and it's just a hair more than 2.5, about 2 9/16, right around in there. And then they have the XP2, which is this one, and it's smaller. You can see that. So the XP2 measures about 2 1/4 inch, or actually 2 1/8. And then the XP2e measures about 2 9/16. So that's one way that you can tell a difference. Other than that, the impellers look very, very similar. So you could see, of course, that wear ring is not going to fit on that impeller. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to work now to try to get this out. So if you look on the back, right back here, there's a little plug. And take a flat screwdriver and pop the plug out. And there's a flat screwdriver fitting back there. You see that right there? So I can put my screwdriver in it and try to turn the impeller off, which I suspect is not going to work. And if you have a big screwdriver, sometimes I'll use a big screwdriver with a like a 1/2 inch wrench fitting on it, and you can hold it. But this thing's so swollen, I'm sure that it's not going to come out like that. So I'm going to get prepared to pull the back off, to take the stator out, and I'll show you how that's done, and then we'll put it in a vise and get the impeller off, and I'll show you how to get it all cleaned up and back going. Stay tuned. So right now I'm going to pull the through bolts out, and this particular pump, we hadn't talked about this particular XP2e is a 56 frame, which I think all 2es are 56. The XP2 could be a 48 or a 56. So you could tell that a couple different ways. The first way would be to measure across the back of it, and you can see that it's actually a hair more than 6 inches. If it's like 5 5/8, it's going to be a 48 frame. A little over 6 is going to be a 56 frame. The other way you can tell is these through bolts are 5/16. If it is a 48 frame, these through bolts right here are 1/4. These are 5/16, so it's definitely a 56 frame. So I'm going to undo these and pull them out. 5/16 and just get them out of the way. Next, I'm going to tap, and you see I've already pre-marked it. There's actually little spaces on these back covers, a little placement. And it doesn't take much effort. Just a little tap, and you don't want to knock it off of here, you want to ease it off. The bearing is actually the race for the bearing, where the bearing fits is actually in the inside of this cover. So you can see that the bearing actually fits right inside here, and there's a switch right there. You got to be careful not to bend that switch. That switch should always be dead straight. If you pull it straight off of here, the switch will grab the edge of the bearing right here. This switch right here will grab that bearing, and it'll actually bend the switch out. So if it's bent out, what will happen is you put this thing back together, you got to power up, and it will just hum. You'll have to spin it to start it, and then it'll run, but then it won't start again. So you have to make sure that's not bent. The other thing is there's a wave washer in here. You see that right there? You got to make sure that washer's in there before you put it back together. So we're going to put that right there, and I'm going to tap the front off just like this with the hammer and a flat screwdriver. You don't, like I say, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. You just gotta give it just a little tap. Just give it a little tippy tap, a little tappy, a little tapioca, and you just ease this out just like that right there. And that's what it looks like on the inside. Now what you have here is a 2-speed switch if it's a 2-speed. If it's a 1-speed, it will not have this switch, and you can see the back bearing. And I'm spinning it with my fingers, very smooth. There's no noise. And I'm turning this. Actually, the bearing in this thing doesn't sound bad at all. But we're going to have to put it in a vise so I can get the impeller off, and we'll be able to assess it a little bit better. So stay tuned. Alright, so I have my vise in here. We're going to stick the stator. I'm putting something in it to protect it, a little piece of carpet just to protect it. This particular one even has a metal fan on it. Some of them have plastic. Just something to hold the stator. And you reach in there with your fingers and see if you can turn it. And the answer is no, so I use oil filter pliers. I've had these pliers since I was about 18 years old. I used them when I was in the car business, and I still use them in the hot tub business. And you can grab the outside of the impeller, and this works on, these pliers work on pump unions, all kinds of stuff. It's still not quite tight enough. Alright, so I was lucky, it broke loose, but it left a lot of the gunk in there, so I'm going to put a rag under here to catch all the pieces that are going to fall out. There's going to be a bunch when I take the wet end off. You see it broke the back out of it. So this has a shaft on it like that right there originally, and it broke the shaft out. You see that right there? So the shaft is still up in here. So that's what I'm going to get the pieces from when I pull this off. So now it's actually still hung up in there. I'm going to turn it where you can see the pieces are still in here. And so as I do that, the pieces, actually the seal is even still in there. So what I'm going to have to do is take a pair of pliers and pull the seal out. I'll show you right here. What I do is grab the seal like this, just pull it side to side. So the seal's out now. So now that'll pull off, you see that, and it even broke the seal in here. You can see that the ceramic's cracked right there. And then this is the back part of the shaft. That's what's left of that shaft right there. You see that? You see it messed up the shaft here pretty good. The thing's been wet a long time. That's metal from the shaft and the back of the... But this part actually sounds good. It's not loud at all, so this does not need a bearing. So we're going to get it prepared, and that is designed to keep the water out of the bearing, and I think this time it did. You can see it doesn't make a sound. Very smooth. So the bearing is good in this. I'm going to pull this now out of the vise, and we're going to get prepared and put it back in the motor, and then we're going to use the motor to power up and clean this shaft like a lathe, and that's how we're going to clean the shaft up. And you can see, if you look at the shape of it, you see it's got a little bit of a cut in it right there. We're going to flatten this out and make it look good. The threads actually look pretty good on it. So we're going to get it prepared and get it fixed up for you. Stay tuned. Alright, so now we're going to take the stator and put it back in. And remember, we made marks, so we're going to line that mark right there back up. And I like to use a brass hammer. And the reason you use brass is the brass will bend before what you're tapping on, so you don't harm things that you're tapping on. Of course, I'm not tapping on it hard. I'm just trying to seat it into the housing, if you will. Now I'm going to put the back on. Now remember, you've got to check the switch. Make sure the switch is straight right here. And this one is. You see that switch right there. And you got to make sure your wave washer's still in there, and it is. So I'm going to slip the switch over. Push that into place. Just like that right there. And the reason I tap it in the center is you've got to get the bearing to seat inside of this back cover. Looks like it's seated pretty good. Now we're going to stick a couple of through bolts through. We only need 2 right now. Stick one there and one here. That's another reason you mark it. If you didn't mark it, it would be hard to get them lined back up to get these through bolts in place. And there's actually about 3 holes side by side where these through bolts go, so you got to be real careful to get this in the right hole. See, that didn't go in the right spot right there. Still not in the right spot. Come on. There she goes. So you can see there, you got 2 sticking through. So now what you're going to do is I have 2 nuts that will fit on these through bolts. So I'm going to put one here, one here. Snug them up. This holds the case together while we run it. I'll tap on it one more time. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back cover off, and you can do it a couple of ways. If you want to take this back over to the tub and you have an amp plug like this, you can just plug it back into the controls, power up. But it needs to be a tub that does not have M7. That means it's a tub that has a pressure switch. If it's got a pressure switch, it will, if the system's working correctly, it wouldn't damage the heater. If you use M7, it will fire the heater intermittently. If it takes any time, it gives you a few minutes, but just don't take a chance. If you've got M7, no pressure switch, that kind of setup, then follow this step. So what we're going to do is, you have a wiring diagram. You can see it right here, and if you look on the wiring diagram, this one actually says that 1 is common and low speed would be the 3 or 4 on the bottom. So we're going to put white on 1, we're going to put black on 3 or 4 down at the bottom right here, and we're going to plug this into 115 volts. You can run it for a short period of time, long enough to clean up this shaft on 115. So that's what we're going to do. Stay tuned, friends. So what I've got here is a 115 volt plug with the 3 wires. It's just black, white, and green. You can see that. So all I'm going to do is simply unplug the white. I undid my ground wire. I'm going to unplug the white. I'm going to put this where the white wire is, which is your line. That's your what we call a common line, which is actually 115 volt. If it's 220 pump, we're going to put the black where the black wire is, which is usually low speed. Black is generally low, red is high. Now there's exceptions to that, but that's very rare for it to be the other way, but it does happen. And then I'm going to put my ground on to keep it safe. And all we're going to do is just use this to run it temporarily until we can clean the shaft up. So there you are. I'm going to leave the red wire on there and just make sure these wires are not touching anything. And you can see there's the back cover right there. Now we're going to open it up and look. And I'm going to flip it around and let you look at the wiring diagram real quick. You can see where it says common is line 1, so it actually says 1. High speed is line 2. Low speed is 3 or 4. So when you look in the back, that's it. The other thing I'm going to show you is you see where that says 12 amp. This thing says 5 horse. You see that? You see this? 5 horse. It also says 3 right there. That is accurate. This is not. 12 amps is 3 horsepower at 230 volts. Period. Not 5 horse, not 6 horse, not 4 horse, 3 horse. So the impeller is going to be a 3 horsepower impeller, not a 4 or not a 5. You see that right there? That's your kicker. 12 amps, 3 horses. That is correct. That is not correct. That is not correct. Everybody lies about the horsepower, so do not base it off of the numbers on there. Base it off of the amperage, friends. Do it every single time. You can't go wrong. Stay tuned. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread chase it. It's 3/8/16 UNC thread, and I'm going to use this and I'm going to thread chase just to be clean. And of course these threads look great. If your threads look as good as this, don't worry about thread chasing it, just worry about the rest of it. These you can see look really good, but I just use a tap. You see how easy that goes on there. Now the next thing I'm going to do safety glasses. So the next thing I'm going to do is start her up, 115 volt. You can see it just powers right up. If you didn't have that switch in the back right, it wouldn't do that. I'm going to take something hardened like this right here and just touch it, and it'll knock all the loose rust off. See, it broke all that rust off right away. Now I'm going to take a brush, kind of clean it up a little bit so I can see everything. Just on the front, you hear how smooth it runs? It sounds really good, but you can see that the shaft is not flat. And I'm not going to be able to make it flat, but I can make it better. Take a file, use it just like a lathe and kind of clean it up. And some of the thickness of the shaft is gone now, but this is still good enough to use. So the goal is you should be able to turn this off, set it, have to run it long, and you should be able to take an impeller, hold the back with the screwdriver, and just simply screw it right on. Perfect. You see how easy that goes on? That is the goal. To get it where that'll go on just that easy. It has the brass threads inside like that, and you see it screwed right on there, just that easy. So we're good to go here. Now I'm going to clean up my wet end and get it ready to go back on. I'm going to start getting it cleaned up. Stay tuned, friends. We're almost done. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to replace this part of the seal. And you remember the part of the seal that was right there was stuck. It actually broke off. So the shaft that it actually goes on is missing. There's the new one. So we're going to replace all this. The first thing we're going to do is I've cleaned the volute up as good as I could. When it gets chemically stained like that, you really can't get it off. I've washed it, scrubbed it, and used like a scouring pad to get it off. So we're going to turn it upside down and just take a flat screwdriver and just get on the edge of the seal and just go boop, knock the seal out. And this seal is actually breaking in pieces, so it actually, you can see that the ceramic was busted on it. And the reason the ceramic busted was this thing swelled up and actually busted the inside of the ceramic. And what we're going to do is replace this first. I'm going to clean this up. I've got that out of there. I'm going to wipe it out, get it nice and dry and nice and clean. I'm going to put a little bit of the Professor Silly Juice on the back of the seal. This is an Aqua Flo, so it uses a 200 seal. This is the ceramic part, and this part goes on the impeller, and this part goes in the volute, which is the back. On a waterway, this part goes on the impeller, that part goes in the volute, so they're very different. But this is a 200 seal. Of course, we have these in our store. We have these in our store. We have the Professor Silly Juice in our store that we use, so we're going to get started on this thing. You just don't want to get the silicone on the ceramic part of the seal. And we're using this actually for two reasons. We're using it to make it slicker so it slides down in there a little more easily. And we're also using it to seal it so it won't spin, because they'll actually spin around inside if you're not sharp. And it doesn't take much. I'm putting just a real light coat, and I'm going to spread it with my finger like that around. Just a real light little coat. And I'm going to use a 3/4 inch coupler right here to push it down. And I'm just going to take it, slip it in there, and take the coupler and just press it into place. I'm going to set it flat so I can make sure it's seated. And then I'm going to wipe the excess sealant off. And that is a properly installed seal. I'm going to push on it one more time just to be sure. Make sure it's nice and seated, and it is. That looks good. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put this part of the seal on this shaft right here. Now the way we're going to do that is put just a little bit of silicone on the shaft, just like this right here, and just slicking it up a little bit, just a little bit around. Doesn't take much. And this is going to seal this and keep it from spinning. But it's also going to help us to slide it on there very simply. Same thing, you just rub a little bit on there, and silicone is very slick until it dries, and then once it dries it sticks very well. So you just slip, you see there's a little rubber piece in there. You can slide that on there with your fingers and just twist it, and once it hits that silicone, boy, it's on down on there. Now one thing that you want to make sure that you avoid is you don't want to twist this part. You can see that there's two little tabs in there. I'm going to try to get it where you can see it. There's a tab here and one on the other side, and they have to line up. So you can accidentally twist this thing around. Let me get it where you can see it in the light. You can accidentally twist it around and get it where those are not lined up, and the first time you put pressure on it, it'll break this. So this is prepared, ready to go back on the motor. This is the old stuff, out with the old, in with the new. Stay tuned. Alright, if you remember, we put the through bolts and put the nuts on, so we're going to just take the nuts off of these. Just a second, turn it off and keep the nuts off. Put the other two through bolts through. Boom, and I'm going to boom yow this one. Boom yow. Remember that we had this turn like this. You see where I put the mark here, and the mark is there. So you slip this on. You can hand start the through bolts to just kind of get the ball rolling. And when you're if you're using an impact or a drill, do not over tighten these, because the knurls, this is plastic, and the knurls are just heat seated into the plastic, so they'll break very easy. You have to use finesse, not power. A little here, a little there, a little there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is correct. Now you can see that the shaft is sticking out. So that's where this goes onto. This actually screws onto the shaft. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stick this on here with this hand, and I'm going to take my flat screwdriver with my other hand and hold the shaft so it doesn't turn. And it should just easily just spin right on there. And it does, it seats beautifully. You can see that it's seated in there nicely. Next, I put my wear ring on. Don't leave that off. And you can see the wear ring actually touches the inside of the face right there. And what that does is, this is the suction side, this is the pressure side. It separates the two sides. This has a little bit of a seal around it right there. And what you're going to do is line that up. It's actually flat right there. This particular one's turned sideways. That would usually be on the bottom. And you just basically stick it back on there just like that right there. And we're going to put the screws back in. So I tighten it up by cross pattern. And these are real sensitive, and what I mean is they're kind of weak around the edges, so you'll see them when they pull together. They even leave a little gap there. They look like they would leak, but they're usually pretty good about not leaking. I put them hand tight, and I go around in a cross pattern like you would tighten the head on the old Chevy 350 or any kind of engine that you're putting together. You do a cross pattern on the torque. So I'm going to go around one time, make sure every one of them are tight. Let's double check, because we don't need any problems when we put it back in the tub. So if you'll follow me to the back, we're going to go around there and we're going to put this pump back in, power this tub back up. Last but not least, I'm going to put the plug back in the back here. That pump right there is completed. So there you go, friends. We're going to go put it back in the tub and fire up and watch it rock. As you can see, no spray. Just like that. Alright friends, so if you need Aqua Flo parts, impellers, seals, complete wet ends, pumps, whatever, if you'll click the banner over my head, it'll take you to my website where we have all these parts, including how-to videos like you're watching right now for all kinds of different scenarios. Go there now. I don't know much, but I do know hot tubs. I'm the spot guy.